Hey guys, it's Frank, that one web guy, and I'm back with another video. In this video, I'm going to show you the introduction to Procreate. This is something I've been playing with for a year or so now, and I'm learning as I go along. And I see people asking questions online about how to do something, or just getting started themselves. And I know a lot of people have gotten recently, a tablet or something like that. And I have a lot of fun with Procreate. That's the application for drawing, sketching, doodling, whatever. I do all of the above. In Procreate, you can draw, you can sketch, you can paint, and just have a lot of fun. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, I want to show you a few things with the Procreate app. We'll go back and forth here, but when we first get started, you have a lot of, you may not have all the images that I have here. So you generally would come in and start with a new canvas, as they call it. You have a lot of different sizes, so you kind of play around and work with what's best for you. Now, I've created a few of my own just for some things that I work with. So you can create your own images or paper sizes and things like that. But for today, we'll just start with the paper size. And of course, it pops up and you have a full screen. Now, generally what I like to do, just for my sake, you can see it over here on the right and on the left, you can see the background. But I like to take it and just pinch in a little bit so I can see the full edges. There's nothing more frustrating than to get drawing and you realize that you think you've got the full thing in view, and what's really happened, let me get a darker color here, is you're drawing, you're painting along or whatever, and you think you're finished, and then you resize and you're like, oh man, I didn't even go to the, so you try to come in here and you try to finish out the image. Well, that's kind of frustrating. So I always like to try to just pinch in just a little bit to get the size that I want. Now, most people will have their slider over here on the right hand side. On this side, I've moved mine over to the left, and I'll save that for a different video on how to do that. I'm right-handed, and I caught myself as I'm moving along. I tend to drag, and I would change the settings over here. I'd make change these two sliders, and it would frustrate me because I was had changed the pencil size, and then I was trying to remember and guess what I had used previously. So I moved it to the left side, but for the beginning user, to the right is just totally fine as well. These two sliders actually change your pen size. Let me go ahead and go to just a inking pen. I use the Studio pen a lot. So you can see here, if by default it has its own settings, and if you take a line across there, it makes that size. If you change this, and it's done in percentages. And the odd thing is here though, is that you can have a 4% that kind of grows either way. It's hard to see with 4%, but there's a kind of a range. There's a lower end and a higher end, and it does make a difference as you get in there. So if you're at 9% and come back and realize it's a little bit different, you may have to come in and tweak just a little bit. But you can see a 9% line is a little bit thicker, and of course you can go different heights and stuff like that. You'll notice with different pens that the way that the pen operates. See how this one's more fluid. But you can see how it crosses over here in that spot. It crosses over and it leaves a line. Other inking pens are different. Each utility that you have there, you can even see that even that pen, that's a different size. I'll come up here. It just works differently. And some of them are, I don't really like how that one's working actually. Each pen has a different setting, different feel, different movement. So one thing that I recommend doing, and if you don't know, you can actually take two fingers, however you want to do it. I hold a pen, so most of the time it's these two fingers, and double tap, and that will erase your last movement, or you can keep double tapping until you go along. What I like to do is I like to come in here and just go through the different pencils or different brushes. I'll get to this other slider in just a moment. But I just go through here, and you can see I've added different brushes. I have some that I've purchased or downloaded for free, like Petrus pencils. There's different pencil settings and stuff like that. I'll just go with some of the normal ones. So we have in Procreate, you have sketching, and it goes a wide range. And some of these are fun, So I just go through. You can see how it has the texture as you paint. There's pressure sensitivity if you're using your pen. And some of them will actually, if you turn sideways, you can actually shade. A lot of people don't know you can do that as well. So you can, pressure harder. If you actually go back and forth, it picks up, just like you would a regular pencil. Let's go ahead and go back here and look through some of the others real quick. Something I recommend doing, though, is going through and seeing what brushes are possible. And some of them, these are the inking ones. You have ones for drawing. And some of these, I find that I use them for different purposes. I was recently doing a landscape, and I was trying to get a brush that looked like leaves on a tree, kind of like sparse ones. And there's one that I use, I think it's under organic here. I never can find it exactly when I want it. Vintage, yeah, it's this rad one. He's like, why would I ever use that? But as I was drawing, I was trying to make this a little bit larger. I was wanting to do brushes or tree leaves. So you could actually, if I scribble across, it gives me this look like little tree branches or leaves on a tree, as I was doing my artwork for the picture, the image that I was doing. So let's back that up. So, at playing, you can see these different textures. Like this disco one's kind of cool. I like it better with the color. Go to the different palettes here. So you can see, this is kind of cool. Some of the things that you can do, so go ahead and explore when you get a chance, just to see some of the different things that you can do with these different brushes. That way you can see some of the things that is possible as you are creating. So take the time to go through and learn the different techniques, different brushes. It's fine just to scribble. I mean, it's not like you're wasting paper, right? Just learn and see what each one of these do. So that being said, let's go ahead and go back to our black. While we're here at the palettes, you can see that you have different palette formats. If you can drag and drop the different, or drag, scroll, change your colors this way. It has a history. You can clear your history. You can set different palettes of your own, create your own palettes. It shows down here. There's the classic mode where you have this big box instead of the disc, and it has the sliders back and forth for RGB or the black and white down here. You can see I have palettes down here preset. There's harmony, so you can actually work on opposite colors or complementary colors. As you move this around, you can see what colors work best with the other. You have the different values. So if you're doing, if you're following tutorials, they may mention the HSB or the RGB colors, hexadecimal. I use that a lot on websites and stuff like that. So if I'm trying to do a logo to match a customer's website, I would get these hexadecimal numbers and punch them in. Some tutorials will actually give you the hexadecimal numbers just because it's so easy to punch those in. You can actually import some of the tutorials or things that you follow. They'll give you a color palette that you can import as well, and they explain in their tutorials, so I'll save that for now. These are all palettes that I've saved or imported from different tutorials I have done. You also have what's called, this is the compact, so these are the ones that I've saved. You also have what's called cards. So you can actually go through here, the same thing, and it tells you the color of the card packs that you're working on. This is a recent one that I did, tutorial that I followed along, and you can see the colors, so you can actually see, I wouldn't originally call that orange, but it does say orange. To me, an orange is this color, but you have light orange and then different colors. To me, this is more of a brown. If you're doing tutorials, I find that it's best, in my opinion, to be able to say orange. Some of the tutorials, they'll say the third one over. Well, if you've put in the hexadecimal numbers yourself, instead of importing the palette, then it may not be in the same order. So I just find that easier using the cards or compact. Again, so that's under the colors if you click that there. Now going back over here to the slider, if you have, let's go ahead and grab one tool that I like to use when I'm drawing like line modes and stuff, is the calligraphy monoline. It keeps it consistent wherever you go. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. I want to get a certain size line here before we really get into some more of the tutorials. But this line here, this shade, this is the opacity or opacity, however you want to say that. I say opacity, of how transparent the line is that you're working with. So if we go 100%, you can see that it's dark. If we come down here to say 60%, it's lighter. Right there, it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. If we come down here, you can see that it's even lighter, and 1%, you can barely see it on the page. Now that being said, when you're drawing, you want to be aware of your brightness on your tablet. You can swipe down from the corner. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Yeah, if you swipe down just correctly, you get your control center here. I like to make sure that my brightness is up as I'm working on an image. It's kind of frustrating, again, that if you draw something and then you realize that you've drawn it and you go to look at it somewhere else, it wasn't as bright, or it wasn't what you thought it was. So like, you've created an image, you've created artwork, and you've uploaded it to share or send it to a friend, and it was muted on their screen because they don't have the same display. So it's always better to come in here and set your brightness to a little bit higher than what you might normally have it. In that case, generally when I'm on my iPad and I'm reading or just playing games, I have my settings down here just for the fact that it saves my battery life. It just, it's easier on my eyes. But when I'm drawing or painting, I have it up a little bit. And then once I have it set the way I want, you can click there and it comes back to your screen. So those are just a few pointer tips for you. Also, let me go ahead and set this back up. A few other things over here. You have this to undo and this one to redo. So you can, it's like, oh, I didn't mean to delete that. I deleted too far. You can redo it and put it back. So that's what those two are for as well. Next thing that I wanted to show you, we've covered the brushes and things like that. I want to cover some basic tips and tutorials with you. Now, this is my first time trying to do a tutorial with my hands on the screen, so I'll try to be as keep my hands out of the way so you can still see but understand also what I'm doing. I see a lot of people have trouble making lines. I moved my tablet. I wasn't going to do that. I move my tablet all around. When I'm drawing, I try to get a circle a certain way or a line a certain way, so I'm turning my tablet left to right and up and down just to get the work that I want. Let me put this back on black. And of course, I've gotten rid of, let's go back to cards. It's dark red orange. That doesn't look like dark red orange. Compact. Let's just go back to disk. I know where that one's at. Black's down here at the bottom. We'll go that route. So with drawing lines and shapes and stuff like that, you have this option. You can draw lines freehand, and it doesn't always get the, you're trying to draw a line like that. I see people trying to draw circles, and I was like, oh, that looks nothing like a circle. Biggest thing that you can do with a circle, I should have turned my notifications off. Let me do that here real quick before we get any further. Do not disturb. That should keep those messages from popping up. I apologize about that. So to draw a circle, a perfect circle, just go ahead and take it and close it like that, and it will close it out for you. I created an ellipse. While I still have my pencil down, I can hold the screen down. I put another finger on there, and it's made a circle, and it's a perfect circle. Now you can up here, you notice it pops up here, ellipse created and edit shape. We can actually edit the shape, and we can move this around. So if I click on one of these handles, it moves it around, it creates an ellipse. Once it's set, I can't turn it back into a circle. So there's that. So once I turn it off, I can actually go back and it's a circle again. I just hit the undo on my screen here. But that's how you can create a perfect circle. Now the thing is that also works with a triangle. So you get something close and it makes your triangle. And then of course that's off centered, so I can edit the shape and I can move my triangle over this way to make it like I wanted. And then click off and we have that. Same is true with a square. I get close. It's a quadrilateral. I'm going to click on there and make it a square. Boom. And I can then, if I wanted to, click here and rotate it. Using that tool, I can rotate it to be where I want it to be. We'll get into those in just a moment, but you can see, so that is much easier to create your shapes. So it tries to guess what you're trying to draw. So if I was doing something like this, polyline created. It doesn't know what you're trying to create, so it's not going to try to create like an actual stop sign, but you can actually get a little bit closer. I think, yep, I didn't connect that in, so that was my fault. Let me try that again. Okay, there it snapped. Edit shape, I still got that end. Oops, now it's trying to create other ends because I didn't get those end connected. You see how that is there? Anyway, that's interesting. It just created another one. You can play around with to get your size the way you want it though. So again, just play with those. That comes in handy. That was something I had to learn on my own as well. A lot of different things you can do there. Now notice, the reason I was using, as I mentioned, I said I used the polyline when creating circles and stuff like that. If I'm doing like cartoon stuff, I can edit shape, turn it into a circle. So I have that circle there. I'm going to click off and I'm going to move this over here, and I'm going to go back to one of the other pens real quick. Like if you're using inking and you use your, and this is where it makes a big difference. If I go to the studio pen, you can see how it's tapered, it gets thicker and then tapers. So when you go to try to create a circle, oh, let me get it to the thicker line. Move this up a little bit. You notice that right here, I've got a connection that you can see is not really solid. I mean, it tapered like it's supposed to. I can edit shape and circle, and I still have that taper. Well, sometimes that's pretty cool if you're trying to create an effect like that. It can be frustrating if you're trying to draw a complete circle for a design or a pattern that you're working on. So think about that if you get frustrated. I've seen people where they sit there and they try to keep the pressure just right all the way around, not picking up or moving or whatever, just to try to get that circle. And you can do it, but it takes a lot more work to try to get it that way. The line, I could get the same line thickness doing this pattern as well. But when I'm doing something like that, I like to go into the calligraphy and go to the monoline for that aspect. So that you know that is available as well. So as you've seen that I had some tools that I was using real quick here on the left. This is just a quick tutorial. I won't go in depth a lot with those things, but here we have our selection tool. It automatically tries to select everything that I have on the screen, so that there is that there. So what we can do, if we wanted, I have these together, I can select freehand. I can select here, draw around this one, and then select that one, and I can move just that one. Now notice as I passed over, there's this gold line. If you watch right here, gold or orange line, it tries to say, it says, okay, that's snapped to that center. I'll come again and it'll snap again here. And if I drag down, it will snap, it'll try to find the center point. So that tells me that it's centered top and bottom and horizontally on the page. And that's the exact center for that image. Now, if I let this go, I cannot reselect just that circle because it's overlapping this one, as you'll see here. So if I try to do that same technique here again, I'm selecting that circle and I go to move that, it's going to move the part that I overlapped as well. So the best way around that, let me close this, we'll undo, go back. Something that I highly recommend, and we don't always think about doing this. Let's go ahead and clear this all. I could just start with a new page. There we go. Something that I want to tell you right off is something that is very, very important when you're drawing. And we don't always think about it, but you want to use what's called layers. I'll cover some of these other ones. I'm just going in a progression here in my mind as we're going along. We have what's called layers. Now we have this background color that changes what the paper color is. You can click on that, pick a different color, and it changes your background color. I'm going to go ahead and go back to white. But on our layers, we have these different layers. So in that same situation, if I have layer 1 here, and I'll draw a circle. Oops, got kind of crazy there. I don't think I went back to my monoline, did I? Anyway, so click off, we have our circle there. I did, okay. And I have that circle there. I can create another layer if we're trying to create something. And so I'm on layer 2. and I draw, let's say I draw a triangle on this one. Looks nothing like a triangle because I did a flat top there. Triangle, there it did. Click off there. So now if I want to move the circle, I go to the layer 1, which is the circle, click it, and I can put it over the top of this. And it's like, okay, that's where it's like, and I click off, and it's like, oh no, I want to move it. I want to center them both. So I go again here, and it copies this the circle because it's on its own layer. It copies just the circle. I can move it. I can try to find the center for that and click off. I know I budged after I let go. Click on layer 2, click this, and then I can also do the same thing with the triangle if I wanted. So that's lined up that way. And so you have control over those different things. This also allows me, if I wanted to, say, if I have them stacked like that and I want to, say, color the circle orange. Oops. You also have to make sure that you're on the circle when you go to color the circle orange. Come over here and boom, the circle is colored. I go to the triangle and I want to color it a little different color. Make sure I'm on the triangle. And boom, so you have that option. It's just stacking them in top of one or the other. That being said, you say, well, maybe I want to do something a little different here. You can drag the triangle underneath the circle, and you can see how the layers help you stack things. It's like stacking transparent, like you have like the transparencies that you used to use on overheads, if you remember those, or it's just you think about it as being a clear piece of paper and you've drawn something on top of it, and what you've colored in is, hiding behind or above the other. So again, it's like, well, I want to see more of that triangle. I'm on the triangle layer, so I can move the triangle up and down around that, or put the triangle where I wanted it to create your artwork that you're working on, whatever that may be. Obviously, we're just going in shapes here. So that's how that would work, which is, comes in handy. So, those are kind of the cool things that you can work on as well. Now, as I said, this is a beginning tutorial video. There are a lot of things that you can do with each individual layer as well. So we have what's called, you can actually turn a layer off. You can see these check marks down the right hand side. So if I click on the right, it hides that layer, turns that layer back on. Sometimes you just want to turn a layer off so that you can focus on what you're doing by doing that. You can even turn the background layer off, and it's just transparent, so you have that grid all the way around. Whatever is best for you. So we also have right next to it, there's this N. I can't remember what the N stands for, and I'm sure somebody will tell me here in the comments, but I can't recall what it is right off the top of my head. So you have different, like the most popular one is the opacity. We have this opacity is before you draw. This opacity is after you draw. So maybe you want to change the opacity of something. This here is different settings that you can do for the images. I'm going to switch to the circle layer since it's on top. We can change the lighting. See how that it just changed the color over the top of the other one. We can go back to normal. We can darken the color. So you see how it overlaps. It creates a burn effect when the two are stacked. There's a color burn, so it just does the color. Darken, multiply. So you playing with each of those, and just scroll through them here. Linear light, pan light, difference. So it's making it changes it as it's going over. Subtract, divide, hue, saturation, those type of different luminosity. So we can go back to normal, and it's back to normal. So those are some of the things you can do with the N. The opacity is the one I use the most, obviously, but those are some of the things that you can do there. Now, here's something else that a lot of people don't know that would be helpful. Say you like the circle, but you decide you're wanting to do something else with it. I can slide this slightly to the left. I can either lock this so that I don't affect that layer as I'm doing something else. So I have a layer that I've got it exactly how I want it, and I don't want to mess it up. Sometimes you don't think you're on the right layer in your erase, and of course you can undo, but if you get intense into drawing, you may be on a layer and you're drawing for half an hour or so, and you come back and say, oh man, I did that on the wrong layer. You can come in here and lock that layer, and you cannot do anything to that layer. So if I was to come in here now, it won't do anything. It would be nice. It says, yep, there it goes, locked layer. So you can, it'll say that that layer is locked. You know, it's like, oh yeah, thanks. You know, so it's like, which also gives you an alert that's like, oh, I'm on the wrong layer. So you can come in here and go to the layer that you want. Now notice it also shows a little padlock next to the layer name. So if you wanted to turn that off, you just come in here and unlock, and that's gone, and you can do whatever you want with it. Again, if you slide, we can duplicate a layer. So now we have two of them. So if you have a shape the way you wanted it, we can come in here and I want to move the layer, this layer. Now they're both layer 1, layer 2. You can actually click on that and rename and call it layer 1A if you wanted. Now on the newer iOS versions of your tablet, you can actually put in a number, you can write it in, or you can actually click on it and keyboard will type, you know, so you can use your keyboard to move that around. Now I use the space bar occasionally to move it if I wanted to go to a certain spot, to move my cursor where I wanted it. So I could actually say layer A, and so it's similar, whatever you want to do. If we're layer A1, oops, not. What I did there was I went to, you see you have these characters above certain letters. If you hold down and swipe, it'll show you, it'll put that letter in there, or that number, whatever that character is above. You could also hit the shift key and it'll do the same thing, but I just find it easier to do that as well. So I'm just gonna leave that one as layer 1A and come down, and that's what we want. Now I can do whatever we want. Obviously it's in the same spot as when I duplicated it, but now I can move, oops, I'm rotating a circle, like you can't tell it's a, anyway, I meant to move it. So we have now two circles, and we can do whatever we want to them with them. Something else while we're here, since I figure that's where I want to leave it. I want to put these two together. You can put your fingers, undo. You can put your two fingers together and pinch them together, and it becomes one layer. And I've merged those two layers together, and now it's just one layer as one item. So I just pinched them together and to make them one image again. That's not what I'm wanting to do here, but that comes in handy if you're stacking things or wanting to. I can just back up, undo, and now we're back to our two layers again. I can do whatever I want with that. So I'm trying to get through as many things as I can in a short amount of time. As I said, this is just an intro layer. There's an intro introduction into Procreate, some of the things I've learned. As you can see here, we have different techniques. I'm going to go ahead and turn these off, and I want to show you something here. If we select here, this is kind of uniform. We can distort, and so if I click this, it's going to distort our shape. You can warp it, so you can actually come in here and anywhere that the grid is, you know, you can warp a shape. That comes in handy. Obviously you wouldn't see why you would want to do it there. You have freeform, you can kind of do whatever you want with it. You can, let's go back, no, reset. You can flip horizontally, flip vertically, rotate 45 degrees, which comes in handy instead of trying to grab these little handles and try to get it 45 degrees yourself. You can fit to canvas. So what that does is you can see the handles are top, and you can assume that it's bottom down here. It just tried to fit to canvas. We can reset. So playing around with these as well helps the different things that you can do with that that selection. Of course, here is our select tool. You have your automatic. If you click automatic, it would try to snap that automatically. Free. Let's see. That didn't do what I thought it would. Let's back up. So we'll go back here. You have the different settings though: rectangle, ellipse, copy and paste. So this one here, if I select, oops, oh, I've got it. I know what it's doing. Okay. We'll explain that later. Let's go back to freehand. I'll do this here and I'll copy and paste, and it doesn't look like anything happened, right? So if I did here, what it did is actually created a second layer based on what I selected. So let's back up here. Yep, okay. So if I come in here and I just selected like this and copy and paste, I would have gotten that on a new layer. So you can see that it looks like the same in this little thumbnail, but you can see that the outline is actually on these two and not on that one. So if I turn off this one, you can see that it's just that selection of what I had copied, which again comes in handy for different things. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that and turn these back on. So those are some of the things in working with shapes. You know, you have your different adjustments that you can do here. That'll be more advanced. You have your different selections. As you can see, as we had talked before, you seen me, I did a color fill by just dragging the color on top of the circle. I see a lot of people trying to color that in. If you're trying to fill the whole thing, that's not necessary. You can just, of course, you know, select the color you want, grab your dot and drag it over. So I hope that helps. Now, one thing that I do find annoying is that you can see there's an outline around there. The only way I see around that is actually to come in and color that in, but you have to be careful, you know, because you can see that it overlaps on the black. There is a technique that you can use on there, and I'll show you that one at a different time, I do believe, is with the clipping mask, reference layers, those type of things. You can do that as well from here. So you can do a clipping mask and only color in a certain area, or you can do a reference layer and it will color in certain areas as well. So you just play with that. I'm going to try to keep it basic here though for now, for today. I will show you, let's go ahead and get rid of our, I'm going to do a new. So if you select anywhere in here and then select your new layer, it'll pop up on top of the one that you most recently selected. So, you know, layer 5 is now on top of layer 1. It's calling it just based in the order of the number of layers that you've added. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete, now see, I want to pinch these all together again real quick so you can see how that works. I can compact, or I can add multiple layers to one layer. I'm just going to delete them all so I just have our one layer again. Now there are some things that I wanted to show you real quick, and then we'll wrap up. If you're using a tool, occasionally I use the airbrushing tool, and I'm wanting to create, say like a, let's just do this. I have the airbrushing tool. I'm going to turn it kind of up to a bigger, and I'm just going to fill in the background here. I'm just trying to create, maybe I'm doing a winter scene or something like that. And I have that there, and I come in here and I do a little bit lighter blue, and I do that at the top, and I'm all on the same layer. For this, you don't have to if you wanted to, but what I wanted to do is, you know, we have some hard lines here. So you can see our color separation. There's some tools over here. I lost it. Oh yeah, here it is, Gaussian blur. I'm not going to go through all of these. This is just one that I use frequently, Gaussian blur. You notice we're at Gaussian blur 0, and you slide to adjust. So I can actually slide this and it blends those together. See how it took that sharp edge? So I go from a light to a dark to a pink, and then I could, you know, once I have that blur the way I want it to, I mean, you could blur it all the way out, or you can keep it sharp again, whichever you prefer to do. Once you have that set, you're set. Of course you can undo, but you know, so I get it about there, and then I click here again and it's set. And then I could go into our another layer, go back to our whatever pen you decide you want to use, and I'll go back into inking. I'll grab my studio pen there. Oops, done. Oh no, cancel. I'll show you that too, what I just did. So I could actually come in here and start drawing my trees if I wanted to. So let's do this. Now, a lot of times I will zoom in and start doing, you know, trees. You think about your shapes and things like that as you're drawing these. Obviously, this is just random stuff, you know, as you're drawing your trees, you're going along. And then you can zoom back out. So you can see how that works. Obviously, I would want to add some black in there to make it thicker. That's maybe just a shadow. I change my opacity and I come back down, and you know, you kind of play around with your different layers. You know, what I should have done is actually probably should have done that on a different layer. You see, if you, as you add more texture to it, if you just do it once, you just get a thin line. And I'm just scribbling right now just to show you something here. So we have this here. We have these solid lines in here. We have the smudge tool that I can come in and smudge these together to blend them a little bit. And it just kind of, if I change the opacity, it'll help a little bit. You can smudge those to just bring things together. Now it works better if you're on separate layers. One thing that I also didn't show you was our erase tool. So maybe I wanted to erase this little line here. Again, you want your opacity up. I can then erase, different components of that I did not like. Obviously, if you change your eraser size, you can get in here and get a little more detailed. So I have this here. I wanted to get rid of just this line. You could do that as well. Maybe I wanted to shape this one a little bit. Just kind of bring that down. You also, on your eraser tool, that a lot of people don't realize, is you have just the exact same tools for your brushes. So if I'm working with in inking and I'm on the studio pen, I could actually use the eraser as a studio pen as well, and I could get more precise in my erasing. So that comes in handy as well. So just to do that, as you can see the different things that you can do with that. I just took out the tree just because I didn't like it as I was scribbling. So, there's a lot of different tools that you can play around with there. I stumbled across one thing that I was going to show you. On the pens, you can actually, if I click on here, it'll bring up this pen editor, and you can change all these different things with your pen on the stroke and the path and things like that. What I'm going to do before I mess with one is, I've already done it here. I got Studio Pen 1, that's Studio Pen 1, I didn't rename it. But if you duplicate before you mess with it, and then go in here, can't remember the exact place to rename it, but you can actually change different components of the pen itself. This is actually what it's going to, the stroke path, what it looks like. You can actually change the jitter. See how it's got the little warble to it when you draw it. You can change, that. See how that looks. So if I go in here and I do our, obviously shows different there. When I go to draw with it now, it creates a pattern more like that instead of the solid pattern. Wish I could remember how to rename that thing. I bet you if I slide, nope. Share, duplicate. I know there's one in there about this brush. It's probably there. Reset the brush, made by, you can actually sign if it's your brush, you could actually sign it as your name, and it's your brush. I can reset the brush as well from that. Cancel. I'm just going to cancel out though. Materials, you can actually change the roughness, properties, the preview, the brush behavior, maximum size. You can actually set the maximum size, the maximum opacity, minimum, and stuff like that. The smudge, the preview, Apple Pencil, you can actually control the pressure points, the dynamics, again. So there's all kinds of different things you can do with this. So if we reset our jitter way back down, it kind of gives it just a little bit of that rough edge, like it's a older pen or a pencil. It kind of gives that. We have our spacing, so you can actually control the spacing between those. You can control the fall off, which is the points. You can see how it goes like that as it drops off, of how long. So if you just stroke, it would be like that. It wouldn't give you that shape, but it would show you how much it tapers off. This means it could taper affinity if you just drag it that way. So we now have another pen. This is actually Studio Pen 1.1. I'll have to go back and try to remember how to change the name. That's not a big deal though. So you can create your own pens then as well. And there's actually ways that you can either sell your own pens or put them away, give them away for free. That's how these people make their own pen packs. So, if you're trying to create certain patterns, you're doing different designs, you may like how this works. And you might say, oh, people want to know how I do this for, creating the things that I do. That is one of them. You see how it kind of gives it this cool rough edge as you're creating like this lotus blossom or whatever you're doing. You know, it kind of gives it a watercolor effect actually, which is kind of cool. So let's see. One other thing, once we have our images, you can go into your gallery, and something that I do is I'm doing different image types, and I haven't done this in a while. I need to go here occasionally and clean this up. So you can actually come in here and say, I have these here. It was a tattoo design I was working on for somebody. I can drag these on top of the others, and now it stacks it. And I can name that stack as well. I think if I, come on, yep. Done. And now I have a stack of tattoos. So these are certain things that I'm working on. Been looking at NFTs, that's a whole different topic. Here's a stack of water paintings that I've done following some tutorials. Just there's some cool things that I've been working on, learning textures and lighting and stuff. So I put those all in one. This is another one that I've done recently. I want to show you something there that reminds me. This was actually creating my own pin pattern. So I drew this and turned it into a pattern that I can use to fill in a spot, and I'll show you that. I use this for, you know, creating out form ideas, or, you know, just sketching out templates. Instead of pulling out a piece of paper, I just bring it in here and doodle. My kids and two of my grandkids go to Otter Creek, so I actually re-illustrated their logos so I could create like a volleyball logo for them. Coloring pages I've created, you know, so you could actually come in here, and I want to do all of them coloring pages. I could stack those as well. I haven't stacked in a while. You know, so here's some circles. These are actually ones that I have for sale on an Etsy store. You know, people looking for that don't draw. You actually can sell them. Here's a t-shirt design that I created. Did these for Halloween, so I stacked all the Halloween ones together. So yeah, these are just ones that I've been playing around with, and I stack them as I go along. I have one for my granddaughter. She likes to come in here and draw. So you see these type of patterns that I do. I actually do these in Procreate as well. So let's stop back, and I'll do a 3K square. That means it's 3,000 pixels by 3,000 pixels. I'll pull it in. One thing that I like to do, and this is just kind of fun and relaxing, is we have these drawing guides. So if you turn on the drawing guides, you actually have a grid that you could follow. If you edit the drawing grid, we have what's called symmetry. So right now, it's just, if we look at it here, where is that? Options. Rotational let's see, assisted drawing. Oh, here we are. I was looking for something different. It was right there in front of me. We have vertical, horizontal. You can see the line goes this way. We have quadrants. That means it's whatever you write in this one is going to be in all four of those. Or you have radial, which is one I like to play with quite often. Now you have these color marks across here. So you have this drawing guide. So right now it's at black. Maybe you wanted it red. I can make the drawing grid red or pink or whatever color you want them to be. Once I have that set up the way I want, I click done, and it goes to our page here. Now I don't see those lines. I could actually turn those on if I wanted to, but if I come in here with my pen now, you can see that I've created a pattern based on just drawing in one quadrant. It copied it to all the other quadrants. Edit drawing guide. So I must have turned that off somewhere. Oh, that's probably what I did. Done. There we go. Somehow or another, when I went up, I must have hit that end, and that's why it made it white actually. So this comes in handy. I'm going to make this thinner, so I can actually come in here and then start from the center and draw something like this. So you can see it's kind of squiggly, so I can actually come in here, and I'm hoping I keep leaning over, so I hope you're not seeing my head in the video. As I said, this is the first time I've done it this way. If I hold the shift key or hold the arc down, I can edit the shape, and I can move that arc a little bit around using that. And click done, click off. Now, of course, I've got it overlapped. I can come in here with my eraser, and I could just trim that off there a little bit. Just make that a little bit thicker on the eraser. I apologize if I'm getting my face in there. I keep backing up or getting closer. Let's switch back to our pen. So you can actually just come in here and create some pretty cool designs. Now I get kind of crazy, I start doing internal ones as well. One thing that I didn't show you when messing with the lines is if you draw a line and then hold it, it'll snap tighter or straighter. So you can do that as well. So if I did that and I want to get a straight line, I just hold down until it snaps. I think you can do the same thing with this, like you did with the circle. See, I did like that. It snaps. I can change the location. It snaps to the degrees as you go along. I got my finger on the screen and it's snapping along if you wanted to do it that way, or you can do it freehand. But that gives you the straight line from the squiggle. So you can kind of do different patterns. Normally I would rotate so I could get a line a different way, so your fingers, sometimes your wrist, it doesn't get the way you want it to be. You're trying to draw something from, I'm wanting to connect this point to that point. So it's like, oh, that feels weird. So you actually move the tablet when you're doing this. But on the demonstration, I can't do that. So I'm going to put this here, snap that, and I'm just kind of playing around. But you can see some of the things you can do pretty quickly. I could fill these in if I wanted to. I usually just do black and white, but I see that these aren't connected. So if I was to fill this in, it's probably going to fill the whole page just because I didn't connect my ends. Let's go do it this way just to show you. Come on. So if I was trying to color that in, it fills in the whole page because I didn't connect the dots. I could go back in, if I go back to black on my history, if I wanted to come in and connect these. Now it's wavy like this because I'm using that pen that I created with the wavy rough edge. But if I come in here and connect my edges again, and now if I go in to fill that orange, it's just going to be in that area. So if you wanted to do that and it fills your page, that's because you have something open somewhere. So that's kind of a cool tool that you use to create some cool patterns. And once you're done, you can go in and edit drawing guide. You could go back to 2D grid. You could turn assisted drawing on or off. From here, you can also do it from here as well. Turn off the drawing guide. So now that you should be back to, oops, I got it snapped to the straight line somewhere. I'll turn that off in a moment. I've clicked something here somewhere. Done. It's probably there. See there, I clicked that white again. Done. Yeah, there it is. That was where it was at. And I'm drawing in orange, but let's go ahead and create a new layer. Just delete this one, and I'll say that is the end. I hope you found this useful. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me. Hopefully I can use this video. As I said, this is the first time I've done it with my hands in the screen instead of just doing a screen display. So hopefully my head's not in a bunch of them. So if you like this, go ahead and comment below. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.